Part 100. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 991. Although I can understand it, I still find it incredible. There is such a technology. So Ce added, then, I implanted the memory in your mind that you must stay with Funanli, because it is true that only Funanli can save you. At that time, I had no choice but to do this. Wen Qiao nodded silently. After that, I have always wanted to study synthetic blood and replace this blood for you, but, I have failed repeatedly, and until now, I have not succeeded. Wen Qiao was still digesting some of his uncle's words. She is inherently smart, and although these are beyond her acceptance range, they are not difficult to understand, and she seems to instinctively believe that her brother-in-law does have such abilities. What happens if it never succeeds? So Ce lowered his eyes. I will die. Suddenly hearing such a straightforward word death, Wen Qiao's fingertips still trembled, and she showed her uncle the bracelet on her wrist. There is a circle of Funanli's blood in it. I was imprisoned in that building last time when I arrived, even though the 7-day deadline passed, nothing happened. So Ce stroked the bracelet gently. It can last for a while, but it will eventually fail. Wen Qiao's face turned pale. Then, how long do I have? So Ce, about 2 years. Wen Qiao forced a smile. There are still 2 years. It feels like there is still a long time. We should be able to work out a solution. So Ce touched her head. Do you want to know if I haven't figured it out yet? Is there any solution? Wen Qiao held So Ce's hand. I don't want to know. So Ce said slowly, maybe, Funanli's blood will be used. Maybe, only one of you can survive. Wen Qiao's hand shook, and the coffee cup in his hand fell to the ground with a crisp cracking sound. There was no blood on his face. I am sick, life and death are determined by fate, uncle, we should not deprive others of their lives, we do not have that power. So Ce held her shoulders. What if he did it voluntarily? Wen Qiao breathed quickly. That's not okay, I won't accept it. So Ce slowly let go of his hand. I won't use that method unless forced to do so. Don't be nervous. We still have some time before that time comes. Wen Qiao slowly calmed down. If one day I no longer have the ability to act independently, even if Funanli agrees, don't do that. Uncle, please promise me, okay. So Ce did not answer her question directly, but said, your neighbor William, do you know who he is? Wen Qiao shook his head. Who is it? His real name is He Ziwei. Wen Qiao, He Ziwei. Gu Xiao's unrelated brother. It's him. Wen Qiao was stunned. The amount of information she received today was too great. She needed some time to digest it. Gu Xiao was injured by Funanli's bodyguard before, and he is still unconscious now. He came back to seek revenge on you. He can also take revenge on me if he hurts you. So you and him. He and I used to be in Pentagram. Then I left the research organization and then came back to you. He is a careerist, very crazy, and very sick. Wen Qiao stretched out his hand to support the table. I really didn't expect that he would be so close to me. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 992. Now that she had come back to her senses, she was still frightened. Thinking about it carefully, it was fortunate that she and He Ziwei did not get too close, which eliminated the possibility of him plotting to harm her. The car flashed by just now, and I saw him. I didn't expect that he had returned to China and bought a company next to you. I was negligent. If I had come to your company earlier, you would have been kidnapped last time. It's all avoidable. Wen Qiao comforted him. None of us has God's perspective. Who could have known that He Ziwei was so close to me? So Ce was worried. Try not to be alone in the future. Hizue will never give up until he achieves his goal. He must have kidnapped me before. Is there any way to bring him to justice? Susie shook his head. Do you think he will leave any clue about such a trivial matter? Wen Qiao had slowly recovered from the shock and shrugged. I was just asking casually. How could Hizue build his business empire if he was exposed so easily? Susie rubbed the top of her hair. When we have a showdown with him, he will be even more wary if he plays his cards clearly. You should be careful in the future. This is a society ruled by law, and the Fu family is protecting you. The Fu family is powerful. Congratulations. Ziwei doesn't dare to be too blatant. Wen Qiao nodded. Yes, I understand. The rain continued until the evening, when Hizue returned to the company. As soon as the car stopped, Teresa came up to her, holding a big umbrella with a solemn expression. Sir, someone is looking for you. Opening the car door, Hizue's posture was lazy. Who is it? Teresa hesitated to speak, and Hizue frowned. It's Mr. Su. Hizue's brows trembled, but he didn't expect that he would know he was here so quickly. Susie was like a robot and had never been interested in such entertainment activities, so he felt that even if he moved next door to Wen Qiao's company, Susie would not have the opportunity to learn about it. But, it was a mistake. The rain fell slowly along the black umbrella eaves, and the air was humid. He didn't like this rainy climate very much, so he slowly walked along the black marble to the second floor. He's in my office. Teresa, yes. Hizue glanced at Teresa. Did you lead him in? The voice was cold and emotionless. Teresa said with sweat, I let him in, after all. Hizue had a gloomy look on his face and seemed to have no intention of listening. Teresa immediately shut up. She knew that her husband hated Mr. Su. Obviously, letting Mr. Su enter his office without permission had crossed his bottom line. The door was opened. It was a rainy day and the light was dim. It was dusk and the lights were not turned on in the office. Hizue saw Susie sitting on the sofa, as comfortable and content as if he had entered his own home. He is always like this, calm, never fighting for anything. Susie looked up and saw no such emotion as panic in Hizue's eyes. He was Hizue. How could Hizue be panic? Not only did he not panic about being caught, he even took a bottle of wine from the wine cabinet. Hennessy, do you want to drink? Susie said indifferently, I'm not here to drink. Even so, Hizue poured him a glass of wine, added 2 ice cubes, and put it in his hand. You are here. Susie crossed his long legs and his eyes were cold. I don't usually argue very much. If you want a 5-pointed star, then I will quit and give in. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me. The boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 993. Hizue slowly sat on the leather sofa. The sound of the friction between clothes and leather was particularly obvious in this silent office, and his eyes were careless. But you should know what my bottom line is. Hizue took a sip of wine and supported his head with one hand. She's your niece. A cold light flashed in Susie's eyes. You tied him up once, if there is another time. Hizue smiled. I don't know what you are talking about. Of course he wouldn't admit it, and of course he couldn't be fooled by Susie. Susie chuckled softly. If you want to take revenge, find the right person. Don't attack innocent or irrelevant people. Hizue put down the wine glass in his hand. The wine overflowed and splashed on the black table. A muffled thunder sounded outside, and the atmosphere in the room became tense. I know that the person you and Fu Nanli hold dearest is that girl. Fu Nanli hurt my brother like that, and you hurt me. Susie looked at him coldly. Gu Xiao is going to kill Fu Nanli. his bodyguard is just to protect his young master, and you, what does your matter have to do with me? Heezaway's expression suddenly froze. You are such a cold-blooded person. Susie, both each other. Heezaway's expression changed. I never thought that someone as cold-blooded as you would care about someone. Susie, if you hate me or Funanli, then go directly to the person involved. If you dare to hurt Akiao. Heezaway smiled and said, I know there is a saying in your country that hits the snake 7 inches away. I must at least know who to hurt to make you feel heartache. Fortunately, you, a cold-blooded person, also have people who care about you, which is good. Then we'll hurt each other. Can you guarantee that you won't be negligent in protecting Gu Xiao? If he finally wakes up one day and dies again. You dare. Susie said coldly, if you dare to hurt my Akiao, I will naturally hurt Gu Xiao. You should also know that I have many people who are loyal to me over there. Heezaway smiled again, you won't have the heart to hurt Gu Xiao. After all, Gu Xiao has learned from you. You were so kind to him before. No matter how nice you are to him, it's not as important as Eiko. After saying that, he stood up and said, you'd better weigh it. Under Heezaway's sinister gaze, Susie left his office. Wen Qiao went to Funanli's apartment. He seemed to have gone to Nanjing to inspect the project and said he would not be back until after 9 o'clock in the evening. Wen Qiao sat cross-legged on the sofa with a notebook on her legs. She took a pen and wrote on it. She wrote down everything her uncle told her. There were so many threads that she needed to sort out. There is no rebirth, which is good. At least the pain of Xiao Kai's imprisonment and Xiao Mo's death were all virtual. Even if it was an experience from her previous life, she would still feel pain in her heart. Now that her uncle had told her that those were memories implanted by her uncle, she felt a lot more relieved. I really want to thank my uncle. After all, if she continues to live according to her previous character, everything will come true. This can be regarded as a warning to her from her uncle. Now I feel that it was a false alarm. Currently, my uncle's laboratory is researching synthetic blood, and Funanli's subordinate Zhou Jin is also doing research. And she still has 2 years left. 2 years is neither long nor short. When everything is revealed. She was actually somewhat calm. The strokes in her hand reached the end, and the last line was that both parties' research had failed, and her lifeline had come to an end. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 994. The uncle said that he would exchange Funanli's blood for hers, that is to say, he would exchange Funanli's life for hers. Her heart suddenly hurt, and a dull pain spread throughout her heart. Wen Qiao felt a little difficult to breathe because the air pressure in the house was low on a rainy day. She put the book aside, walked to the balcony, opened the floor-to-ceiling windows, and sat under the transparent rain. Under the shed. The air was filled with the fresh smell of rain watering green plants, and the sky was dark and low. She sat there for a long time. It was not until the floor-to-ceiling window behind her was opened that she suddenly realized that Funanli was back. Funanli reached out to unbutton the collar of his shirt, came over and took her hand. Why are you sitting here? It's raining outside. He saw that the person who had always been calm suddenly hugged his waist. Somewhat clingy feeling. What's wrong? He patted her back gently. Wen Qiao didn't say anything and stood up on tiptoes to kiss him. Funanli breathed heavily, Qiao. Late at night, Funanli hugged the person in his arms and felt something was wrong. Qiao was very enthusiastic tonight, but there was also a sense of determination that would break the boat. What's wrong? Wen Qiao closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He put his hands around his armpits, grabbed his shoulders, and buried his face in his chest. I said before that you are the most important person in my heart. Yeah, the man's voice was low. I'm not saying this to make you happy. You are really the most important person in my heart. Fu Nanli stroked her long hair. Okay, I am the most important person in your heart. My biggest wish now is not to be on any wealth list, nor to see how successful the film company or esports club can be. It is, if you do well, I will be very happy if you can do well. She regretted a little, maybe she shouldn't have been close to Fu Nanli in the first place. Why should anyone pay for her health? Fu Nanli pinched her chin and forced her to look up at him. Something's not right tonight. What's going on? Wen Qiao, it's nothing, just remember my words. Fu Nanli kissed the top of her head, and my biggest wish is that you can be well. Wen Qiao's mood became a little heavy. Didn't sleep well all night. When she returned home the next morning, she saw a strange man standing in the yard, dressed casually and with a gentle temperament, smiling at her. Wen Qiao touched his neck. You are. My name is number 3. Wen Qiao, 3, no 3. What a special name. Who are you? Who are you looking for? Looking for you, you are my master. Wen Qiao was a little confused. He looked up and saw his uncle coming out. Ah Qiao, let me introduce to you. This is the latest robot developed. I didn't even have time to name it, so it's called No 3. Wen Qiao was stunned. This turned out to be a robot. He felt completely no different from a real person, including his hair, skin, and even the blood vessels under the skin, as well as his voice. It was so similar that she would have never imagined it, not to mention it was a robot. Wen Qiao touched No 3's hand. It was warm and had the same texture as human skin. When he poked it gently, it was also elastic. Really a robot? Yes. Don't you have any metal in your body? No. Wen Qiao walked around number 3, and number 3 seemed to have a good temper. His genetic sequence has been implanted with some relatively shallow diseases. It is a medical robot, and it can be your experimental subject. One has rheumatism, one has cerebral infarction, and the other has high blood pressure. Now you start to replace it. After his treatment is effective, he will treat Fu Nanli's grandfather. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 995. Wen Qiao reached out and patted number 3 on the shoulder. Thank you for your hard work. Serving the master is not hard work. Then let's eat inside first. Number 3, I don't need to eat. Sleeping. No need. Wen Qiao rubbed his chin. Then where does he stay when he goes to bed at night? Suci pointed to the gate of the courtyard. Let him guard the door. Wen Qiao, this is not good. Number 3 smiled. It doesn't matter, master, I can guard the door. Wen Qiao, Wen Qi often lives in the club now, so you can sleep in Wen Kai's room. Thank you, master. Master, you are so kind. Wen Qiao scratched his head. Uncle, have you implanted some kind of rainbow fart system into him? Turn it off immediately. What is a rainbow fart? Suci asked seriously. Wen Qiao, forget it. My uncle doesn't even know what a rainbow fart is, and it's unlikely that he'll be implanted with such a system. This is just a very polite robot. Su Yun and Ji Mingyuan were amazed all day long, saying that the current technology has developed to such an extent that there is no difference at all between robots and real people. Wen Qiao and Wen Mo are much more receptive and are both calm. That night, Wen Qiao began to train number 3 on his hands. Number 3 was lying on the sofa. Wen Qiao lifted up a corner of his shirt and looked up at his uncle. 6-pack ABS. Suci, the appearance was created by a female designer, and I didn't know. Wen Qiao felt a chill on the back of her neck. If someone jealous found out, she would probably have a hard time. Number 3, I can only hide you at home. Wen Qiao sat on the pony, took out the silver needles one by one, and inserted them into various acupuncture points of number 3. Number 3 was very cooperative and did whatever he was asked to do without any complaints. Moreover, it looks very eye-catching. Wen Qiao feels very trouble-free with such a partner. Every morning, Wen Qiao would measure No 3's blood pressure for record-keeping. At the Yuanese mansion, the old lady called herself, "Qiao Qiao, are you free? Come over here quickly." When Wen Qiao heard the old lady's urgent tone, he was a little nervous for a moment. He didn't dare to delay and quickly drove to Yuanese mansion. She was worried about the old lady's symptoms. When I arrived at the mansion, I saw the old lady sitting on the sofa in high spirits, waving to her cheerfully, "Jojo, come here." Wen Qiao breathed a sigh of relief. "Grandma, are you feeling uncomfortable somewhere?" The old lady shook her head. "No, I just want to tell you that your acupuncture is very effective. Hasn't it rained a lot recently? The joint pain has been relieved a lot. Qiao Qiao, I really want to thank you. You much better than that Dr. Zhang." Wen Qiao breathed a sigh of relief and shook her hand. "There are still a few courses of treatment. After all the acupuncture, we will see the effect." The old lady couldn't help but hold her face. "Oh, we Nanli are really blessed to have found a child like you in our previous life." Wen Qiao felt a little embarrassed. "He is also very good. I think it's just like that, not as good as you. That Dr. Zhang Qianshan is also here today, carrying a medicine box." The old lady just planned to explain it to him today, so that she doesn't need to come here in the future. Even though this man was old and his medical skills were not as good as her Qiao Qiao's, he had used various words to disparage Qiao Qiao. She couldn't bear it. "I heard that double monthly tickets have started. Let me ask for a monthly ticket." Look at the expectant look in my eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 996. When Zhang Qianshan saw Wen Qiao, his heart skipped a beat, then he smiled and said to the old lady, "Let me take your pulse." The old lady was not a good person, and she didn't need to give anyone face. She said bluntly, "Dr. Zhang, I have something I want to tell you." What? It's like this. You have been treating me for 5 or 6 years for rheumatism, but there has been no significant effect. Dr. Zhang said quickly, "That is a chronic disease. There is no way to cure it. I can only relieve your pain." The old lady felt relieved. "The key is that you didn't relieve my pain. Qiao Qiao treated me for less than 2 months, and the effect was very good." Zhang Qianshan's face turned red and white. "How is this possible?" The old lady didn't directly say anything to stop him from stepping down. Instead, she asked the housekeeper to tell Zhang Qianshan so that he wouldn't have to come over again. Zhang Qianshan was so regretful. Why did he attack the girl mercilessly in front of the old lady? The relationship between the Ye family and the Fu family, which they had finally built up, was ruined just like that. Rather than the fact that he could no longer rely on the Ye family, he was more curious about how that girl in her early 20s, who had only studied for a few months, could be so durable in just 2 months. Relieve the old lady's illness? Although he is noble, his medical skills are indeed first-rate. Otherwise, the Fu family and the Ye family would not ask him to be the old lady's personal doctor. He has studied traditional Chinese medicine all his life, but has not been able to achieve any results in these chronic diseases. I'm confused, I'm really confused. Regret, really regret. As if he remembered something, he went to Jinming Acupuncture Parlor. He and Su Jinming, the owner of the acupuncture parlor, were classmates in the past. Later, one of them entered a regular hospital and the other opened his own acupuncture parlor for business. He essentially disliked this old classmate, but when he entered the shop on the street, he saw it was crowded. Su Jinming was wearing a white coat and holding a needle in his hand, pricking an old man with white hair. He waited for a while, and then Su Jinming became free. "Let me ask you something." Su Jinming said calmly, "Tell me." "There is a little girl named Wen Qiao who said she worked at your place for a while." Su Jinming smiled softly, "What? That girl looks like she is only in her early 20s, and she has only been studying medicine for a short time, but she seems to be able to cure some serious and stubborn diseases that even I can't do anything about." Su Jinming glanced at him. "Do you know Professor Su?" "Who has not heard of Professor Su in the medical field?" "How?" "She is Professor Su's close disciple, the kind who teaches you step by step." Zhang Qianshan was stunned. "Professor Su? Doesn't Professor Su not accept students?" Su Jinming chuckled softly, "I can't tell you too much. Professor Su will personally correct every mistake Wen Qiao makes, and this girl has a very high IQ and is very smart. She studied for 2 months, which is equivalent to ordinary people have been studying it for 10 years, and it's really normal that she can cure diseases that you can't." Zhang Qianshan was completely discouraged. Remembering his condescending attitude when they first met, his face suddenly turned red. Ashamed. At Yuanyi's mansion, Wen Qiao gave the old lady another injection. After the treatment, she took out the needle and washed her hands. The old lady handed over the hand cream, and Wen Qiao squeezed a little and wiped her hands. The old lady said happily, "I feel like my complexion has improved. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me." Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 997. Wen Qiao smiled and said, "I hope grandma will be healthy." The old lady gave her another necklace. A jade stone with a transparent texture seemed to be of great value. Wen Qiao didn't understand this, and he couldn't refuse the kindness, so he could only go to Fu Nanli with an expensive box. Fu Nanli glanced at the necklace in the velvet box. "Laocan grows Burmese jade. Such a piece can probably buy 2 houses." Wen Qiao's hand shook and he almost fell. He suddenly felt that the jade in his hand was extremely heavy. "I deserve it? Can you tell the old lady not to give it away in the future? I told you, the old lady has money, she gives it to you, you just take it." He had just returned from the flight, still wearing the captain's uniform. He tore off his tie with one hand and threw it on the sofa. Wen Qiao held the box and followed behind him into the bathroom. Fu Nanli turned on the faucet and washed his face. He took out the towel and wiped the water on his face. The child beside him in the mirror was still struggling. Fu Nanli reached out and rubbed his hair. "The old lady likes you, so she gave it to you. When she gave it to you, she didn't want you to be stressed, but she wanted you to be happy." Wen Qiao felt a little relieved and raised his head. Only then did he realize that he was wearing the captain's uniform today. The warm yellow light in the bathroom illuminated his 3-dimensional and deep eyes. There were still water droplets hanging on his temples, slowly falling into his neck and sliding to his Adam's apple. She was so overwhelmed with uniforms that she suddenly realized that what was in front of her was a beautiful and appetizing picture. She actually swallowed her saliva. Fu Nanli's slender fingertips landed on her waist, and he took the box in her hand with his other hand and placed it on the sink nearby. She was hugged into his arms. "I want to take a bath." After taking a shower, Wen Qiao's cheeks turned red. When the two of them left the bathroom together, a video call suddenly came in from Wen Qiao's cell phone. Fu Nanli saw the other party displaying no 3. Wen Qiao didn't think much and just swiped away. The handsome face of number 3 appeared on the phone screen. Fu Nanli frowned. He knew almost all the friends around Wen Qiao, but this was an unfamiliar face. A strange yet handsome face. "Qiao, when will you come back?" In the past, number 3 always called her master, but Wen Qiao felt uncomfortable, so she asked him to call her Qiao Qiao like the rest of the family. She lazily said, "Today, I probably won't go back. But you haven't acupunctured me yet tonight." Wen Qiao licked the corner of his mouth. "It's okay to stop for one day, and continue tomorrow night." Number 3 was very obedient and smiled slightly. "Well, then I'll wait for you to come back." Wen Qiao hung up the phone and saw Fu Nanli looking at her with slightly narrowed eyes. "Who is it?" Wen Qiao didn't dare to be shy this time. "Robot." "But?" Fu Nanli didn't believe it. "Robot." Wen Qiao nodded. "It is indeed a robot. A robot that can talk and laugh exactly like a human. The Fu family has no industry in this area, and Fu Nanli has no research on this area." Wen Qiao said seriously, "It's a robot. Not only does it look exactly like a human, but its skin feels the same to the touch. It even has muscles, including abdominal muscles, chest muscles, and back muscles. The lines are very nice." The more he talked, the darker Fu Nanli's face became. Before Wen Qiao noticed it, he only heard a sinister voice, "Have you seen it? Have you touched it?" Wen Qiao, "Yes, I touched him. I have to give him acupuncture. Of course I have to touch him." She felt her waist tighten and her entire feet lifted off the ground. She was already being hugged by the man. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me. The boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 998. That night, no matter how Wen Qiao explained that number 3 was really a robot, Fu Nanli didn't believe it and kept fussing about it until late at night. Wen Qiao lost his temper. "Now you come home with me, and I will show you that a robot is a robot." "What did I lie to you about?" Fu Nanli clasped her waist. "It's late at night, I'll come back tomorrow." "No, go back now." Fu Nanli couldn't resist her, so he had to get up late at night, help her get dressed, carry her downstairs, and return to the alley of Shuiying Road. As soon as Wen Qiao knocked on the door opened in just a few seconds. Number 3 was full of energy and looked at her expectantly. "Qiao Qiao, are you back? Didn't you say you wouldn't come back?" This warm and caring tone was like a husband waiting for his wife to come home. Fu Nanli felt a little blocked. "Wen Qiao, tell my boyfriend that you are a robot." Number 3 responded to requests and looked at Fu Nanli. "I am a robot." Fu Nanli held Wen Qiao in his arms possessively. His breath was a little heavy and his face was a little gloomy. The man standing opposite him, who was about the same height as him, really didn't look like a robot. Wen Qiao took No 3's hand, and Fu Nanli suddenly felt pain in his temples. Wen Qiao lifted up No 3's sleeves. On the inside of his right wrist, there was an imperceptible 2-centimeter red line. Wen Qiao pressed it lightly and saw number 3 suddenly close his eyes. Wen Qiao turned to look at Fu Nanli. "With my fingerprint recognition, I can close his program and you can touch his face." Resistance was written all over Fu Nanli's face. Why would he touch a man? Wen Qiao took his hand and forced it to touch No 3's face. It felt cold and metallic. It turns out to be a real robot. Wen Qiao pressed the inside of No 3's wrist again. Number 3 suddenly opened his eyes. Wen Qiao took Fu Nanli's hand to touch it again. This time, there was a warm touch, which was the same as human skin. Wen Qiao looked at him with an expression of being wronged. "Okay, do you believe he is a robot now?" It was exactly 12 o'clock in the night. Fu Nanli could feel the child's aggrieved and angry mood, and coughed lightly. "It's my fault." Wen Qiao and number 3 stood together. "Since I have gone home, you can go back by yourself." Fu Nanli's face darkened. "Go back with me." Wen Qiao crossed his arms and raised his eyebrows. "I don't." Fu Nanli picked up Wen Qiao, and number 3 grabbed his arm. She said she wanted to stay at home and sleep. The program implanted by Susi, number 3 will unconditionally protect Wen Qiao. Fu Nanli said coldly, let go. He's taking his girlfriend away. When will it be a robot's turn to dictate? Number 3 pressed Fu Nanli's shoulders. Fu Nanli raised his hand, and Wen Qiao fell from his arms. Number 3 wanted to throw Fu Nanli over his shoulder, but he didn't expect that Fu Nanli was not an energy-saving lamp. Wen Qiao's remaining anger was now gone, so he could only stop. Number 3, don't hit him. Number 3 immediately stopped. Fu Nanli's shirt was wrinkled and his hair was messed up. Number 3 had just punched him directly at the corner of his mouth, which was now bruised. Number 3 wasn't much better. After all, Fu Nanli's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was no joke. When the family heard the noise and came out, Wen Qiao quickly took Fu Nanli and ran away. Back at his mansion, Wen Qiao had to give him medicine. Slight injury, no need, it's getting late, go to sleep. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 999. Wen Qiao sat on the coffee table and put his foot on his leg, don't move. Like the king of the mountain. Fu Nanli chuckled, it was my fault just now. Wen Qiao turned her head and looked at him, if someone who is afraid of chaos in the world took a photo of me and number 3 and sent it to you, would you be jealous again? Young Master Fu coughed lightly, probably not. Wen Qiao chuckled, I believe you're evil. Fu Nanli, does he live in your house? Wen Qiao held a cotton swab, dipped it in some iodophor, rubbed it on the corners of his mouth, and stepped on his legs. He was like a little bandit. What? Can't you stay? The eldest young master held her slender ankle, he looks like a normal man after all. Where does he live? Wen Qiao shrugged, stay in Wen Kai's room. If Wen Qi comes back, he will sleep on the sofa or the upper bunk in Xiao Mo's room. Fu Nanli frowned. Wen Qiao, he is a robot. He has no emotions. Your girlfriend is not so charming that even a robot would fall for her. Please be at ease, young master, okay. What can Fu Nanli do? She could only let a handsome guy spend time with her day and night, and then whenever she slept alone, she would be so envious that she could not sleep at night. Oh, by the way, there's something I almost forgot to tell you. What? I know where Hizue is. Fu Nanli's expression suddenly became sinister, where is it? Wen Qiao pursed his lips and said, that's William, the boss of the company next to me. Fu Nanli's heart suddenly thought, what did you say? It is indeed him. He moved next to me, not by accident, but deliberately. It must have been his work that led me to that building before. Fu Nanli frowned deeply, how did you know? Wen Qiao. How to say this? My brother-in-law and he worked in the same place before, and my brother-in-law is also very good. Does my brother-in-law know him? My uncle didn't like some of his things to be known to others, and she had no right to disclose them for him. She could only say vaguely, just, I found out. Fu Nanli pinched her waist, how did you check? He used people from country M, but he hasn't found the results yet. How did this girl find out? Wen Qiao, don't ask so many questions. Anyway, I will be on guard against Hizue. Fu Nanli. The sense of crisis is overwhelming. His little friend now has many secrets from him, and there is such a handsome boy who is not inferior to him living in her house. Even though he is a robot, he still feels uncomfortable. As a result, all the senior executives close to him in the Zhonghuan group suffered another disaster and had to accept the eldest young master's ruthless anger from time to time. The next day, at Nanqiao Company, Lu Yuyu happily reported to Wen Qiao about the box office results of Tracking All the Way. It has exceeded 1 billion. There are 2 blockbusters coming next Friday. The current estimate is about 1.1 billion. Jojo, you have made a lot of money. Wen Qiao smiled slightly, go and book a celebration banquet. In addition, send me a message to William and ask him if he has time to come to my office for a cup of coffee. Lu Yuya was stunned for a moment. Ah. William. William from Huihe. Yes. Lu Yuya held the small notebook in her arms and came over. What do you want to do? Aren't you afraid that your boyfriend will find out? Wen Qiao raised his eyebrows. It's okay, please contact me quickly. In about 10 minutes, Hizawei arrived. He walked into Wen Qiao's office calmly without any guilt about having been exposed. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1000. Wen Qiao, sitting at the desk, folded his arms, looked at him with a half-smile. Teresa wanted to go in with Hizawei, but Hizawei raised his hand to block her from the door. After the door closed, Hizawei walked towards Wen Qiao with a smile on his face. Miss Wen, please call me over. What's the matter? Wen Qiao reached out and held his shoulder. Then, Hizawei felt like the world was spinning. When he entered the door, Wen Qiao threw him over his shoulder and hit the ground hard. You. Wen Qiao half crouched beside him. Mr. William, no, I should call you Mr. Hizawei. Hizawei chuckled softly and sat up slowly. You know. Of course she knew. After all, Susie knew. Susie must have told her. Wen Qiao raised his eyebrows. Yes, I understand. Hizawei felt a severe pain in his back, and Wen Qiao was completely merciless. Wen Qiao's eyes were as cold as winter ice and snow. You tied me up and made me stay in that small room for a day and a night. Now, I give it back to you. Hizawei knew that this was a girl who must avenge herself. But he still whispered, I don't know what you are talking about. Wen Qiao didn't mind if he didn't admit it. I know there is no evidence, so I can't do anything to you. As soon as she finished speaking, she grabbed Hizawei's collar and punched him in the face. His handsome face was distorted, his hair was a little messy, and blood even slowly dripped out of the corners of Hizawei's mouth. Wen Qiao's blow left Hizawei helpless. Hizawei, who was originally very handsome, had bruises all over his mouth when he left her office. Teresa was so scared that she covered her mouth. Mister. I heard something going on inside. But she didn't dare to go in rashly. Unexpectedly, her husband was fighting with Miss Wen. If your husband is injured like this, then Miss Wen. He saw Wen Qiao walking out unscathed, with no injuries on his face. Teresa couldn't believe it, so her husband was beaten unilaterally. Sir's kung fu, isn't that good? Why didn't you fight back? Seeing her husband's face ashen, she didn't dare to ask any more questions. Wen Qiao said coldly, if Mr. He does any tricks in the future, I won't let you go. If you are a man, do it openly. There was a sinister look in Hizawei's eyes, which made Teresa tremble with fear. She was afraid that her husband would become angry because of the shame, so he killed Miss Wen tonight. If the husband is really cruel, there will be endless troubles after the meeting. After all, Miss Wen has Mr. Su behind her, as well as the eldest young master of the Fu family. Hizawei stroked the corner of his mouth and walked out gloomily. Teresa bowed to Wen Qiao and quickly followed her husband's footsteps. Being able to unilaterally beat her husband like this and subdue the young master, she truly felt that Miss Wen was a strange person. Wen Qiao looked at Hizawei's back and moved his wrist bones. At least it was a showdown. Hizawei was no longer hiding in the dark and would not be hurt by open or secret arrows. When Hizawei returned to his company, Teresa carefully brought the medical kit over. Sir, let me give you some medicine. Hizawei was sitting in the boss's chair with a very gloomy expression. Teresa held a cotton swab in her hand, dipped some iodophor in her hand, and gently applied the medicine to him, but hesitated to say, "Sir, what? Why don't you fight back?" She was answered with a cold look, and Teresa knew that her husband didn't like her asking this kind of question.